everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Amanda Ostrander. I am a teacher-turned-homeschool mom, and this is Raising A to Z, a place where we talk about all things homeschooling. And today, I'm going to tell you how we handle screen time in our home. So how do we handle screen time? Screen time is a highly controversial subject, I find. Parents are often up in arms over screen time. There's concerns around screen time. And I think one of the big things is that screen time is so subjective and it's such a huge spectrum in terms of parenting approaches and philosophies and all of that. I know parents personally who are very, very strict. Their kids get screen time 1 day a week, or 1 hour a day, all the way up to parents who have unlimited screen time and everything in between. It's very much a wide spectrum of what parents find acceptable when it comes to screen time. I can only tell you what happens with our family, and why we approach screen time the way we do. We kind of fall somewhere in the middle. Well, I think most parents understand that for the average kid, too much screen time is not good. I think we all can agree that screen time can be negative. There's lots of studies that show that screen time can be negative. And so I see a lot of parents, especially in the homeschooling community, who swing, right to the opposite side, no technology or no screen time. And it comes out of this fear of the studies that are showing that screen time is negative. And I think there's something very nuanced that's often missed in these screen time studies. And it's because the problem with screen time is not necessarily the amount of time. It's what's happening with the screens. So the first problem that we see when we're doing these screen time studies, one of the biggest issues is that it's unsupervised screen time. So that it's kids on a computer, an iPad, a phone, just doing whatever, looking at whatever, reading whatever, interacting with whoever, and it's unsupervised. So that's when you're getting into a lot of issues of inappropriate content, luring, grooming, cyberbullying, all those things come out of unsupervised screen time. So I think that's something that's really heavily missed in these big screen time studies, is that they're just talking about screen time in general. It's not, there's a big difference between sitting down with your kids and watching a movie and your kids just willy-nilly scrolling through the dark corners of the internet. Those are two very different things, but they would be accounted for as the same in these studies. The other thing, especially in homeschooling communities, that people don't take into consideration is that when they're doing these one of the big final pieces that come out of these screen time studies is that one of the big negative sides of screen time is that it's taking away from time with parents and with family. That's a very big concern when your kids are gone for 7-8 hours a day because they're at school. When you come home, if your kids get home at 3, they have to go to bed by 7. That's 4 hours. They do an hour of homework. They do an hour of dinner and baths. They have 2 hours. If they spend that all on screen, you haven't spent any quality time with your kids as a family. That is a negative side effect that comes out of screen time. That's different when you are a homeschool family and your kids are done their school day by 11 a.m. And then you're literally spending the rest of the day with them, interacting with them, creating with them, doing all these different things. That an hour or 2 of screen time does not have the same negative consequences because you've also put in so much time to connect with your kids in family time. So that's a huge thing that is often not taken into consideration, especially for homeschool fans. I'm not saying that you need to do more just because you're a homeschool family, but it's something to think about. And then the other thing that it goes kind of hand in hand with the family time is screen time takes away from other positive things in kids' lives, like spending time outdoors, spending time creating, spending time, doing other things with other people and with family and socializing. Same thing. If your kid only has 4 hours at night and they're spending 2 hours mindlessly scrolling YouTube, well, then it's basically 2 hours wasted of time that they could be using to interact with people, to learn something new, to create, to go outside, to get exercise, to move, to listen to music. There's so many things that can be taken away when that's how limited time you have. So that's a huge component of screen time studies that I think is nuanced and is often missed, is because kids' full days are spent at school. They're often coming home and then spending their downtime on screens. And we're missing this whole section of, it's not necessarily this that the screens are bad, it's that the unsupervised time and the time that they take away from other activities is what's negative. And I can tell you that in a lot of schools, they're spending a lot of time on screens, even in schools. So these are things that are negative. But there are also some great positives to technology. I personally know some people who are very like anti-technology, anti-screen time. And I always say, but you're missing out on things. Because number one, screens aren't going away. So we can either hide our kids from them and then leave them inept in the world, or we can teach them how to use screens properly and appropriately and safely. And having screens is not a bad thing. Screens doesn't have to be a bad thing. Number one, screens can offer so much information. Like we call it the information era, because you can literally get information on whatever you need. Your kid has a question, they want to explore something, they want to read about something. You can find that on the internet. And the only way they're going to find it on the internet is if they're using a screen. Screens also allow us to do a lot of things like gamify learning. It allows us to take knowledge and information and put it into a game. Even like, for example, you can make your own word searches or your own crossword puzzles or things using spelling words. You can do that with technology. We're still using screen time to get final outcomes. We're using screen time to make assignments, but your kids can also use screen time to play games. Like some of the biggest things that my kids have learned have come from apps that they've gotten on their iPad. And how they use those apps have taught them incredible things. How to do addition, subtraction, how to read. Alexi learns French on an app on our iPad. You can't tell me that that's a negative thing because she's learning so much from that app. Technology and screen time can also allow us to connect. I think this was a huge thing back during the pandemic and all that, when we had, Zoom meetups and kids were able to call family and friends. They were able to send messages to each other. Our kids can do that, and they can connect with relatives who are far away or even not that far away. They can use technology to connect with a friend who maybe they haven't seen in a while. So we can use technology to connect. And I know some families who are quite remote, and technology is the best way for them to connect. We also have to remember that technology can be incredibly assistive, especially if you have kids who have any kind of learning disability, who are neurodiverse. We can use technology to their benefit. And they're probably going to use more screen time because it's the best way for them. Things like a talk to text is a great option for kids who have difficulty with holding a pencil, or difficulty with dyslexia or things getting their words out. It's a great option for kids who just aren't at the writing stage, they physically can't spell words out, but they can still tell a story. You can talk to text it on a device, and they can write out a story essentially. Reading. I knew students in university who were using reading programs on their technology to read them their textbooks because they had various learning disabilities, and that was the best way for them to get their information. We can't deny those kids those tools, because that is going to make their ability to learn and be successful so much better. And then finally, technology is super entertaining. We can't deny the entertainment value of technology, whether it is movies, whether it's music, whether it's audiobooks or books themselves. Technology makes it so much more accessible. And sometimes that's a great thing. Recently, Alexi's been really into this book series, Last Kids on Earth, and she read the first 5. And then we went to get book 6 from the library, and it wasn't available. And so we figured it was going to take us either 3 weeks to get it from another library. I'd have to buy it for, I think it was $26 because it's hardcover, or she can get it as an ebook on her iPad. So we did that. We downloaded the book onto her phone, and not her phone. I promise you it's not on her phone. It's on her iPad. And so she's been reading, let's see if I can find it. She's been reading Last Kids on Earth on her iPad. And she just, swipes. I gotta make sure to go back to the right page. But yeah, so she's been reading books on her iPad, which we otherwise would either cost me a lot of money to get, or she wouldn't be able to finish the series. And when you're 5 books into a 9-book series and you can't finish it, that sucks. So let's not deny the entertainment value and the benefits that come out of having technology. I think we need to remember when we're talking about technology, we're talking about it in a sense of We want to make sure that what we're using is supervised and it's appropriate. We want to make sure that our kids have time and access to do things outside of technology. We want to make sure our kids have time with family and that we're teaching them how to use technology safely, appropriately, and for various things. Like it's not just a mind-numbing scroll on YouTube. You can use technology for other things. You can use it to create stuff. You can use it to write stories. You can use it to learn and to research. There's lots that we can do with technology that is great and beneficial. And we just need to teach and introduce kids on how to do that safely and appropriately. All that being said, how do we handle technology in our home? Because we kind of are a down the middle kind of family, we are pretty open with technology in the sense that our kids do get cartoons first thing in the morning. When they wake up, they go to cartoons. I love it because it gives me a few extra minutes. Often I'm going out for a walk before my husband leaves for work. So I'm out, I'm walking, and if they wake up, they can just watch cartoons till I'm back and ready to make breakfast. So they get cartoons first thing in the morning. They often get a cartoon at lunchtime as well. So cartoon time in the morning and the afternoon, kind of a free for all. It's got to be appropriate. So often like Zoe bounces between like Paw Patrols and Peppa Pig, and which I'm not a huge fan of Peppa, but whatever. She often, right now she's right into Izzy's Koala Rescue or something like that. We also went through a very heavy My Little Pony phase. We were deep into the My Little Pony lore there for a while. Alexi likes to bounce kind of same. She often watches the same things. But she also tends to like, right now she's watching a lot of like Last Kids on Earth, which is the series that goes with her book. So they're kind of like during that time, it's free time as long as like it's appropriate cartoons. That's kind of where we're at. And then when in the evening at dinner time, because my husband comes home at 3:30. So we've done the how are you, the small chat, all of that by the time dinner rolls around at like 6. So we watch a movie as a family. And by watch a movie, we typically take a movie and break it down into like 20 or 30 minute segments, however long it takes us to finish dinner, pause it, and then restart it then like start up again the next time. And so often it takes us 5-6 days to get through a movie, depending on how long it is. And A, it's kind of like a family time. We're connecting over this and we're discussing it. And B, I'm also often picking movies that have to do with our theme of the month for our unit study. So sometimes we'll pull a documentary. Sometimes we're pulling movies that are connected to like the theme. Like we watched Cruella when we did a fashion movie. We watched what's it called? Ratatouille when we were learning about like food and cooking. So we'll pull movies that are related and then we're making connections and we'll discuss that. Often we're pausing, like I'm not kidding, we pause the movie a lot to like talk about it while we're watching it at dinner time. But like, so we do technology that way. Outside of that, those two like cartoon times for breakfast and lunch and family time movie at dinner. What if my kids want to use technology? So basically after that, they need to ask for technology time. And I look at 3 things when I'm looking for if it's going to be a yes or a no. Is it just for fun? So if it's just for fun, the answer is probably going to be no. So if you're just looking for something to do and you want to like watch a movie, that's not going to fly. You've had cartoon time. You're going to have a little movie later. Like it's just not going to fly. So that is how we typically do it outside of like a regular day. Obviously, if kids are sick, totally different situation. If they have no energy and just want to lay on the couch, different story. But like on a regular day, it's nice and sunny. You don't need your screen time right now. So the next thing we look for is it for learning? Are we going to use technology to learn something? So are the kids is there a question that they have that they want to like look up the answer for and research? Are they wanting to see how to do something and they want to look at it like a YouTube video on like how to make something or do something? That's a different story. I will totally allow that and we will get together and discuss that. And I will help them because they're both quite young still, help them and show them, sit down with the iPad and walk them through the steps of how we look something up on the internet, how we look for a good site, how we Google things, and then often read it with them or watch it with them. In terms of like, if they want to play a game on their iPad, this goes back to like, is it learning? So is it learning? So if they want to play something like oh, we have like an Osmo that connects to the iPad. If they want to play Osmo, I typically try to reserve Osmo iPad games, even if they're educational, to days when the weather is just miserable and we can't go outside. So if it's like pouring rain outside and you've done a whole bunch of other things today, all right. If it's like -40 outside and it's not safe to go outside, and again, you've done other things, you've done your schoolwork, you've read, you drew, you colored, you did all those things, then yeah, maybe we'll have a little bit of like learning iPad fun games. Awesome. Is it learning? That's a big thing. Is it learning? And then the last thing that I always ask for, is it for creating? And because I think we need to remember that you can create some really cool stuff with iPads and with technology. So my kids are, especially Lexi, is really big into making movies. So she'll go and take her characters or her toys or whatever and film them. She'll make up a whole storyboard and film them. And then she films different segments and she cuts them together and she edits them and she makes movies. That's incredible. And that's such a creative use of technology. But it's also like we're talking about like storytelling and angles and filming and editing and plot and suspense. And then she adds in music and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening. And it is happening with a screen, but she's creating something in the end. Sometimes she creates music. She's got apps where she's like makes her own music sometimes. Sometimes she's taking photos. She's big into taking photos. But sometimes she's taking photos and then she likes to go through and put like different filters and effects and like make basically like art pieces. That's awesome. Once you had a sleepover with a friend and I woke up at 7 o'clock, I was like, oh, you guys are up. They're like, oh yeah, we've been up since 5. I was like, doing what? And they're like, well, we took the iPad and we wrote a story. And so they worked on a story for 2 hours. And it was it was like a full page of like writing that the two of them did at 5 in the morning. I don't know why it was 5 in the morning, but they were up and they created something quietly, respectfully, and they made something really cool. This whole little story about a koala. It was awesome. So if you're going to take technology and create something with that, then I'm usually a little bit more go for it. And I think that's just how we handle technology. Is it going to be creative? Are you going to learn something from it? If not, then let's find something else to do for now, because my kids do have time to have kind of like free time, entertainment time on their iPad as well. That's how we handle screen time. We have probably more screen time than most families, but we are also very cognizant of how we're using screens and how we're teaching our kids to use screens. And I think that is ultimately the goal that every family should be focusing on, is how are your kids using screens and making sure that they're doing it safely, efficiently, and appropriately. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing, or even better, becoming a member. Members get tons of free content, bonus content, early releases, all kinds of stuff. So definitely want to consider becoming a member. And then make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for other cool bonus content as well. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.